I created this kind of idea when I was in the Army, and it was actually something that kept me alive. And it was like when I would see a house, if people were shooting at me from inside the house, I would not go into the house.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today is Wednesday. It's another episode of the Mike and Dan Show, where I, Mike DeHaan, and my co-host here, Dan Austin, talk about real estate investing, business, and whatever else the flavor of the week is. So, anyways, guys, welcome. We have actually an interesting topic that I wanted to start with because I think it is, it's an interesting real estate story, but also it is a kind of just, amongst all the jokes we make about weird sellers and crackheads and different things, it's something that doesn't regularly get addressed, and that is personal security when you are walking some of these off-market deals. So if this is your first time to this show, our main business is as an off-market wholesale style investment real estate operation, and we do a lot of marketing to people that are distressed, and sometimes those people come with a lot of personal and mental baggage, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Emotional, mental, physical, all the baggages.
All sorts of stuff, right? Yeah. Just, and we make a lot of jokes on this show and other things about some of the situations, but sometimes they get a little bit dicey. And so we sent one of our partners, as a member of our partnership program, to a house. What's that? Unknowingly. Yeah, for sure. It was not knowing the situation, to this house to go and do a walkthrough. And basically he got to the house. The guy that met him at the house was obviously using some sort of substance. So he was on meth or something. The energy was not good, and there was some weird things going on. The guy spent most of the meeting going up and down in temperament, and going from being super aggressive to being super kind of chill. Was asking our partner all these sort of personal questions, where he lives, wants to know his last name, wants to know if he has kids, wants to know all sort of stuff, and then walked around the entire appointment playing with a pocket knife, just kind of fidgeting with it. So just a lot of red flags. Okay,
he was disgustingly dirty.
He was just disgusting, dirty, just creepy sort of guy. And partner called me afterwards, and he's like, "Dude, that was super sketchy. Why the fuck did you send me there?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, we didn't know." And then about 5 minutes later, he sends me a headline from the news here in late 2019. This is even an old article, so who knows what's happened since then, talking about this guy's unbelievable rap sheet from the 90s. And this was news. It was an alert news bulletin for Spokane that this guy was back in town and was kind of amongst the public again.
A sexual predator, a violent sexual predator.
Violent sexual predator. Yeah, he had a history of trying to strangle women in the park, molesting kids.
I love the milk jug one.
Dude, yeah, doing all sorts of, jerking off into a milk jug in the park so people could see it in public. He had these different journals and stuff about how he was going to dismember people. Has been to jail a bunch of times. For some reason, we didn't put this guy down with the death penalty, and he's out among us still.
You know what's funny about that? Just on the side note, I researched this, level 1, level 2, level 3 sex offender, those are levels. I don't know if it's nationwide or Washington. I'm sure it's standardized. Level 3 is the way that they determine the level is their likelihood of recommitting, and level 3 is highly likely to recommit a crime. Then why is that person doing this? Why are they out here?
Honestly, why are they free at all? But then, we have a guy that gets caught with freaking a bag of weed, and they, not in Washington, but in other states, and they'll go to jail for 30 years.
Right.
It's
come on. Yeah. That's why I say, somewhat jokingly, but also serious, there should be some subjectivity to, the death penalty.
There should be, for sure.
In this one, the court of public opinion, I think we could all agree. Most everybody. The majority of people would agree in this case.
We just got to do it, I don't know. we have everyone like in Gladiator where they just have to everyone give like a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Right. Seriously, yeah.
You know, like here's this guy's list of all the shit that he's done.
One thing that as we got into this business that I found out was how a large portion of the United States population lives, and you kind of uncover the veil of, I don't want to say like the gutter or the dark side, because they're genuinely not necessarily bad people just because they are maybe in a financial distressful situation. But sometimes you go in people's houses and you're like, whoa, I did not expect to see that, but okay. And so next time you go to the grocery store and you see somebody, there's a good chance that their house is disgusting. I'm always, and then like if you see somebody in public and you're like, man, I bet your house is disgusting. It definitely is disgusting. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And it's kind of not nice to say, but like we've walked enough houses and they're like, oh my gosh, like it's kind of wild. Some of the situations people put themselves in on top of then these types of situations. Cause he's not the first criminal that's tried to sell a property to us. And like we've had other criminals. I mean, shoot. What was that sex offender who's in jail? He was calling us from jail. It's funny. It happens to be a lot of sex offenders usually. Actually, it's like they have other problems with their life. You know, like that's. I get it.
I don't know.
But they also own property somehow.
Yeah. So I mean, and this whole situation too. This guy wasn't even the official owner of the property. His deceased father owned it, and he was basically just living there, and now trying to sell it. But the point being, though, I want to talk about just personal security with this, because I think it is something that tends to get slightly overlooked because, you know, in your general day-to-day life, you can normally trust people. But when you are going into these situations, when you're going into the home of a stranger, especially if there are some red flags, we talk to them, there are certain things you should probably do. And I'm not saying you need to necessarily, like, carry a gun and be ready to shoot somebody, because I would never, I guess, like, tell anyone to do that. Obviously, it's your choice, whatever you want to do. But I even think just, like, basic stuff, like making sure that there's always someone that knows where you're going and, like, when you're going to go there. So if they decide to lock you in the basement or hit you over the head, you at least have somewhere that they can send people to look for you, right? I think that's a really major thing.
If there's any question, too, like, or you're just starting out and you have no idea, it's okay to back up and say, you know what, I think I'm going to bring my contractor back.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring somebody with you.
Bring somebody with you is what I was going to say next, I think is a huge thing. I would say number 3, don't let like your desire for the deal get you into a dumb situation, right? Like don't feel like you need to, I don't know, go into this person's house if you show up and it doesn't feel right. Okay. Be okay to walk away, because it's better to be safe than, you know, and miss out on a deal than to, I don't know, get stabbed in some dude's house. You know, I think that's another big thing to keep in mind. And then, you know, I would say that the last piece is, while you are there, make sure that you are walking through and actively, like, just being aware of what's going on around you, especially when you get into the monotony where you're walking through a lot of houses, you're doing a lot of different things. It can become very easy to get jaded and just sort of like become familiar with the situation. And that's where stuff can get weird too. So generally just listen to your gut. If stuff doesn't feel right, it's probably not. And if you have a bad feeling about something, you know, address it and approach it a different way, or just move on. You know, there's plenty of fish in the sea. You don't need to be risking yourself trying to close a deal.
Sometimes you run across things that are illegal, like Noah Evans, who we had on the podcast not too long ago, and he ran across an illegal dogfighting operation, which he reported. And so there's sometimes things that you should definitely report too.
For sure, right? And we've had stuff like that. I mean, like we did that house where they had the 8 kids that were padlocked in the bedroom, right? So we had to get CPS involved, you know, but those are things that you can do. It's more like the volatile individual. Or like I remember the house that to this day I'm still very certain was some kind of like sex trafficking ring, when it was like this creepy old dude in the house. And all of the rooms were like curtained off, and he said all of his friends were sleeping, and all of his friends were these like zonked out females that were just like laying on the couches or like in beds, that all like, you know, gave some weird vibes for sure. We called the cops on that one. You know, and not being afraid to take action when you do see things as well, I think is pretty big.
I think sick. I have this rule of thumb. I created this kind of idea when I was in the Army, and it was actually something that kept me alive. And it was like, when I would see a house, if people were shooting at me from inside the house, I would not go into the house.
That makes sense.
Really basic, right? You would be surprised at how often people are like, well, I'm going to go in the house when we have all the technology in the world, including bombs and dogs and all this sort of stuff that you can send in, and robots now that you can send into these houses where you're getting shot at. But sometimes people do think they need to go in there because that's where the bad guys are. It's like, well, my rule of thumb is I immediately stop trying to go in and I step back and I think, because they're in the house, I'm not in the house. Once you're in the house with the people, now you're in a very dangerous situation. I kind of approach houses like no shit. Like I kind of approach situations like that where I'm like, that looks like a bad situation. I'm not going to insert myself into that situation. It's like just kind of simple rule of thumb.
It's the Call of Duty effect, dude. They're like, if I sprint fast enough, I can get around the corner and shoot them before they see me.
Let me throw my grenades real fast.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no, it's just simple rule of thumb. Just don't go there. So, but it's also kind of like the idea of like your spidey sense. It doesn't have to necessarily be people shooting at you, but when you see things, and you just have to be aware. And it's kind of funny because like you and I when we first started in this business, I'm trying to put this in context of somebody who's new. Like you and I would walk all appointments together, not because we were like, we need to be safe, just because we're dorks and we show up with our blue polos on.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that was the whole shtick though. Like we even had, a couple guys that would be like, hey, you're just like on the website.
Right. Exactly. That's totally it. But we would show up like there was no harm. Nobody was going to probably harm us like physically, but we definitely saw some weird stuff. I still remember the time we were walking that one house, like everybody in town has walked through, that green one that had like that old dude that was like right off of whatever road, the Maple or whatever. And I walked upstairs and like there was like partially the roof was gone, and I looked around the corner and there's just a pile of like needles, like syringes, and there's nothing up there. Like it's just bare bones wood and just nothing. It's like a 100-year-old house. And all these like pigeons flew around and like went right by my face. It scared I mean, dude, I was so sketched out. Like I was for sure. I saw those needles. I was like, oh man, there's drug addicts in here somewhere. There wasn't a bit of copper left in that house.
No way. That one was stripped down. Yeah, that was the one right by Planet Fitness. If you're a Bristolian investor and you're listening to this, everyone walked that house.
Everyone's walked that house. It still hasn't sold.
Well, he kept it, but now there's like windows and stuff on it. He rents it. It's like a livable house again.
No.
Dude, go seriously. Next time you drive down Maple, look at it. There's like, there was a for sale sign. Yeah, I mean, I think he ultimately fixed it because remember he owned like the strip mall that was right next door to it.
Yeah, I remember that. That's like mostly vacant.
Yeah,
all the time.
So,
wow.
Anyway, so point being though, just be smart, right? And don't be like a little bitch about it. Like, so you got to get into weird stuff sometimes, but at the same time, be smart. And if something feels like it's just not right, use your common sense and don't try to deal with something that's going to be a dangerous situation just to make some money. There's so many other houses out there. There's 100 million houses in the United States. If you miss out on one, you go on the next one. It'll be fine.
Right. Yeah, don't be a wuss though. If you're gonna have to crawl around in a crawl space, do it. I've had to do it.
Totally.
I don't like it. I hate it every time. I've gotten on my belly, gone in there. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. I mean, even I've done that too, and I'm freaking big boy.
I know, right? When you see the little eyes looking back at you from under the house, there's a rodent problem. It's so gross.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but we promise it's not like a Japanese monster from a horror movie. It's just a rat. You'll be fine.
Yeah, just a large rat. Or possum. I don't know if we have possums
here. I don't think we do. I don't know. We don't really have a major like pest issue here.
No,
we have raccoons because I'll always remember going to that house in Wallace and walking up the stairs, and literally I came around to the bedroom and there was like 6 raccoons that all like froze and just stared at me. And then the second they saw me, they like scurried all over the place to like get out of the open
I'll mess around with raccoons, dude. Those little, what do they call them? Like trash rodents or something.
Trash pandas.
Yeah. Trash pandas. There you go. Yeah, dude. Dirty little bastards. But.
Anyways, so that's just a public service announcement I want to talk about because it was actually a good reminder since we run a mostly virtual business these days that like stuff can get weird. So make sure that you are treating things appropriately. But anyways, but besides that, Tim, what's going on with you, man? Have we finished renovating our little lease to own that we bought yet? I know that you were out there swinging a hammer.
We haven't even started renovating it. We haven't even started. No, actually, we have a guy out there today taking a look at it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
that was
not working.
That was kind of a sarcastic comment. I thought you were going to say nothing's moved on it.
No. Yeah, we got someone out there taking a look, and I've got almost all the pieces lined up on it. It's just kind of like piecing together subcontractors. So it's kind of like for this situation because it's such a light rehab. Like we're just kind of subbing out flooring, probably painting and fixtures. Like it really doesn't need a lot of work. It's Vinyl Village, but it needs enough of an upgrade that you can't just call a flooring guy or just a painter guy. And this is always the trick when you're doing renovations, whether it's a flip or just for your personal portfolio, is who do you call on some of these projects? Because there's always that work that if you call the flooring guy, they're like, yeah, I don't do that. Or if you call a painter guy that just paints, like, I don't do that. And like, you're like, well, you got to take those off, just put new ones on. Like, and sometimes you'll find a person that will do multiple things, or like a flooring guy that's like, yeah, dude, I do trim work and all that stuff. I'll do that for you. And so then you kind of find the things that you can add to. But in lieu of having like a full crew coming in, which on this one we're really not, we just kind of need more like we need a painter, we need a flooring guy, and kind of like a handyman. So I've got a guy out there that can meet a few of those needs, and so we'll see how that goes and get it in there. So
cool. So figure it out. Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of like the blessing and a curse of having like a large enough portfolio to like carry your carrying costs. Is, it's great because you don't necessarily have to worry about having those carrying costs because they'll just get absorbed by the rest of your portfolio. But the downside is then it's very easy to not prioritize it.
Right. Yeah. I was telling this to the Instant Investor group on one of our calls, maybe last week or something. Like, we treat our portfolio as like a shock absorber, and meaning that it can absorb oopsies, it can absorb the gotchas, but also it can absorb some risk. And so we can take on projects, or we can take on, overhead cost for a higher risk project, or a longer term flip, or a longer term exit, or even if it's short term, because now we use that portfolio as something that kind of covers those costs. So we're not making poor decisions out of urgency. The funny thing is we as flippers and investors, we want to maximize our ROI, but you don't want to make a bad decision just so you don't have to make another $1,800 a month hard money payment or something like that. When in the grand scheme of things, like $1,800 is not that much money, and if that's what makes or breaks your deal, like the hard money lending cost, then you've probably got really, really bad hard money or really, really bad deal. And so having that, the goal of the portfolio is really not even the passive income necessarily. The goal of the portfolio is to give you opportunity and to shock absorb so that you can continue to swing at the fences and hit those doubles, those triples, and those home runs every once in a while, as opposed to always getting these base hits of $200 a door, $200 a door. Those do add up. But I think the upside, and my point in this whole conversation, is not the $200 a door. It's having that opportunity to take the bigger swings for those larger deals where you have $100,000 upside.
Yeah, definitely right. And it's all, it just finding different ways to alleviate that cash flow problem like that, I think, is always so huge. 'Cause otherwise, you can't get into a spot where you suddenly have these huge carrying costs and liabilities. And has to come from somewhere. And that's where you get when like you're a new investor and you're like, oh man, I'm just like feeling cash crunched. I can't afford marketing, because you have all these carrying costs coming your way.
Totally. And I think the goal here
really
is
uncomfortable place to be.
This is in alignment with the massive income over passive income. But the goal, I believe, at the end of the day should be that you are producing enough active or just like income from whether like a high W-2 or like your flipping business or your wholesaling. You're creating enough income that you need to and choose to invest in real estate as a mechanism to utilize leverage, debt, and using that to magnify your money, but also for the tax benefits. It shouldn't just be solely, which we've all focused on when we started out, and a lot of the online and social media people out there were talking about passive income. If you can just get 10 houses to cash flow $1,000 a month, you've got a $10,000 a month job. Not in reality, that's not how it works, and real estate becomes less and less passive over time the more you own and all that. But my point being is leveraging real estate not for necessarily the cash flow, but for the debt you get with it, and also the tax benefits you get with it when you have a high earning another high earning active income through flipping, wholesaling, or a job or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that is the original intention of real estate investing, right? Yes. And now it's just become something that more of the masses do because it's been talked about, like Robert Kiyosaki and everyone else. It's a great way to build wealth, for sure, but just like the way that it is sold, if you look at like the bigger pockets era, is not the reality most of the time.
Yeah, it's not really that valid anymore anyways, for the time being anyways.
Yeah. So regarding these like holding costs, I want your opinion on something. And this is something that we haven't talked about, so you guys can hear this live on air. Ooh. So I don't know, a few episodes ago, what episode was it? Let me see which number. It was one of our most popular episodes that we've had, episode 134. It's titled "Are Rental Properties Worth It?" And we dove into, you know, how I have so much equity in my current rental properties. I'm thinking about selling them so that I can, you know, just get that money back, so I could probably make more with it doing other things just with the amount that I have there. Looking at like the fact that there's several properties that are going to start to have renovations or like, you know, basic upkeep stuff that's going to be relatively expensive coming up over the next little bit, and looking at, should I, you know, capture my gains and just move on to something else? And so this is the situation that I'm in. So I have one of my houses. It's one of my like newer ones up on 5 Mile that I've owned for over 5 years now. Bought them in 2018. Overall, they've been great properties. Very little sort of upkeep and stuff that I've needed. I found out that one of my tenants is moving out at the end of October. Okay, so it's going to be going vacant at pretty much like the worst time, going into the holidays. Okay, my plan is to sell this house. So I have 3 options really. Okay, I can list it on the market, like, you know, fix it up, list it on the market during the holiday period. I can rent it out for on like a 6-month lease, or try to get someone on a 6-month lease, which is hard, and have them live there until, what would that be, April. They might do damage to the house. There's going to be some hurdles that come in there. There's going to be other things. I'm going to have to like fix it up, do repairs, then put that person into it. Okay, and then list it in April when it'd be more opportune. Or I could just carry it through like, say, the end of January into February, then list the house, but I would be carrying a liability for 4 months, which would be a total cost of, I think it's about like $6,000 if I look at the mortgage payments.
That's all your utilities, taxes, insurance, all that.
So in fact, you're right. With utilities, you'd probably be more. It'd probably be closer to $7,000 if you consider heat and things like that. So what do you think is my best option here? What would you do in my shoes?
Yeah, what is the percentage? The 7,000. What is the percentage of net gain is that you're giving up by holding on to it without anything?
That's a great question. So my total profit when I sell the house should be about $160,000.
Okay. So like probably 4% of your net gain. Does that math work out?
Yeah.
4-ish%, 3 to 5, somewhere in there. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. How much work does it need?
I mean,
to get that.
So I fixed it up pretty heavily before the current people moved in, because it was transitioning out of being a house for the state, where they had kind of trashed it, right? Except the people in the wheelchairs that were ripping around there doing dumb shit and just destroying the walls. So it's like in good condition. I mean, I bet it would need, I don't know, let's say $2,000. Just like say fresh paint, fix up all the odds and ends, make sure everything works out. So, you know, that's probably relatively conservative, I would think.
Yeah, here's what I would do. My plan A would be to find somebody close to me that needs a place to stay for a short period of time through the holidays, or potentially even a fire family, which is what we're renting in our short-term or our medium-term rental right now. It's like looking for some fire families. We had a fire recently near us that burned, I don't know how many homes, but quite a few.
Like a lot, yeah.
So you could be looking for something like that. And then, I would say let it ride. What's the point of the headache of trying to lease it, getting it fixed up with the risk of the move out process, right? It's such a headache. But if you can find somebody that say, hey, wants to, you know, cover your costs and you trust reasonably well, that just needs a place to live for a while, you know, I would do that. That would be my priority choice. The carry costs I don't really care that much about, if I plan to sell it anyways.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad bet. Yeah, because like I guess my concern is with going to the open market with the rental. You know how this whole process goes. It's a shit ton of work, right? And even if I use like a property manager or whatever, like they're still gonna be like, hey, can we review all these people? Half the people that come in are gonna have freaking pets and like different stuff for kids, and so I'm gonna have to fix up the house after the first person moves in. have the care, like I'll make a little bit of cash flow over the next 6 months, and then I'm just gonna have to fix it up again in 6 months when the next person moves out, and like net that will probably be similar.
Okay. I got an idea. How much are you trying to? What do you want to list it for?
450.
450.
Yeah,
I'll take it off your hands for 380 today.
380. Yeah, right.
But I mean, 10% sales cost is gonna go away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but the thing is, though, is I know you're gonna list it to me. You're gonna list it for me for less than 3%. So,
son of a bitch. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. That's funny though. Yeah, I like that idea though of not bringing in a headache since it is such a short run. I mean, you're talking November, December, January, 3 months ish, maybe February, but 3 months of dealing with it. Now you have less stress to turn it. You can get the quality work, wait till you get a guy to come in and do it. You live nearby it, so it's not like you're worried about it being vacant. It's in a class A class neighborhood, whatever you call it. So it's not, there's no risk of much going on, so that's just my perspective. And trying to sell a house even in November, December anyways is trash, let alone rent it out.
I know that's a whole other thing. But at the same time, part of me is like, because of the location of it, I guess, what do you think is the risk of me just getting it fixed up and throwing it up in November? Especially like where it's at. I think it's a great spot. I think that there would still be plenty of interest at that period of time.
I think so. I think you're probably right. It's not my money, so I'm taking this speculative approach. And what if in Q1 they decide that they're going to do a rate drop?
For sure, right?
And all of a sudden, people are out there. All the realtors are out there like, hey, marry the house, date the rate. Date the rate.
Yeah, right.
And you're like,
the plus side is I got 2 chances. I own the one across the street too, so I can make up the money on that one.
Well, and you set the comp, right? Because they're identical houses.
That's true. Yeah. But no, it's just interesting. And I mean, those are the questions though, right? It's like the problem with trying to forecast what they're going to do in the market as a whole is you just never know. And I bet maybe I'll ask Aaron Muchstegi about this in a couple weeks when I'm down in Austin, because he's really into like the macroeconomics. If you guys missed that episode with him, I'm just going to plug old episodes today. That episode with him, 135, he's just a freaking wizard. Like when it comes to knowing, I guess, like the way the market's going to go, and you should definitely go and follow his stuff. But I'm sure that he will have some sort of metric about what is the common thing to do in election years, whether like what they're going to do with interest rates, right? Because 2024, big election coming up. The federal government's just an absolute fucking mess right now anyway.
Yeah. Both presidential candidates will be in jail by the time it's done.
Yeah, right. Or like, either literal jail or one's going to be just in like a mental jail. So he's going to be vegetative at that point. But you see Nancy Pelosi's trying to like run again. She's like 90 years old.
Is she really?
Why is
she trying to come back?
I don't know.
What motivates you to do that?
She's like, my insider trading isn't working as good anymore.
Yeah, right. I don't have any insight anymore. Yeah, right. She's still hooked up.
God, of course she is. Yeah, right. Once you make those connections, they don't go away.
Yeah.
But that you're completely right though. Rates could come down, stuff could change with that. But also too, here's my contrarian view, is looking at just like the local economics. Right next door to there, they're going to be starting a development. So what happens when they start throwing up new houses right next door? And you have all those builders that are starting to try and do pre-sales in all those houses that are going to be very similar to mine, but nice and brand new.
Yeah.
Are those going to start to devalue mine because mine are 5 years old?
Yeah, probably because yours aren't old enough to where it's like a different neighborhood, a different this, that, the other. There's no argument for like, oh, well, it has character. No, it doesn't, because it's going to be the exact same, just 5 years older than the one down the road. And the new one down the road will have the new LVP in it.
It will, and they'll have like the stuff that they learned from building the ones that my house are in, of like, oh, well, we add an extra window here, it makes it that much more appealing. What if we change the layout this way? What if we made this extra open concept?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so, there's always lots of different things. I don't know. I think that the big lesson with that is if you try to always be predicting that, you'll just never do anything. So you just got to figure out what makes sense with your timeline and risk tolerance. But so anyways,
good luck.
I appreciate the insight. Well, I'll let you know when I need the listing paperwork so you can throw it up on the market for me.
You're going to have to fill it all out though.
Oh, no.
I'll just give you my MLS key.
Let's have one of our VAs do it.
Good point. Harvey knows how to be a realtor by now.
He does. He's done all of your reoccurring education enough times at this point.
I mean, I didn't say that publicly. You said it.
I mean, allegedly. Oh, it's fine. Our business coach freaking has his VA do his pilot stuff.
Whoa, I did not say that either.
Yeah, right. I'm sure it happens everywhere, dude.
Oh, for sure. Anywhere there's a VA, there's a whole staff of VAs out there that are highly qualified at something. Firefighters, probably. They're probably qualified at, like, I don't know. What's another thing that has to have, like, some sort of, like, annual training? They're all engineers, too, probably.
Probably. Just, like, everything. I don't know. Is there anything that doesn't... There's a bunch of them that are, like, hairdressers. Like, that's probably a cosmetology school. They probably make you re-up for that.
No, but they probably know the health codes around, like, waxing buttholes. There's got to be some, like, public thing that you have to... Some, like, sort of, like, public health thing class you have to take for that one. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe right.
So you don't get pink eye or something.
Oh my god, you're probably not wrong. I don't know.
Supposed to wear a mask.
Yeah, right. So, cool. Yeah, that's my plan with those. And then,
yeah. What else we got? Anything?
I don't know. I think that might be it. Yeah, we're just kind of chugging along right now, trying to get some more stuff moving. More stuff closing, signed around. Our pipeline was looking pretty good going in September, and now looking at October, we're a little quiet. So I'm hoping we get some stuff moving here pretty quick.
Yeah, we'll get some things signed up.
Yeah. So it's been a weird situation with getting new deals. I feel like we've just constantly been dealing with the classic situation of the landlord being weirdly sympathetic to their non-performing tenants. That's been like our number one recurring thing over and over and over again.
Right.
And then we just had title issue after title issue.
Yep.
And it's one of the challenges with the off-market real estate world is you run into these situations that you like just can't make go faster. Like you're kind of subject to whatever the legal process is within the city or state. Right. It's just like, well, it is what
I think
it is.
It's interesting because we've had some like good deals that just go sideways for whatever reason. Dumb seller, bad title, whatever, something. But we are literally doing a deal right now where the seller said they're not, we don't want any assignments. You cannot assign it. So we get that every once in a while, and we'll take it out of our contract. We'll just say we're not going to sign it, whatever. And we don't. But not only did they not want us to sign it, they wanted to use their purchase and sale with their realtor. Okay, fine, we can do that. And they wanted to use their title company. So in this case, we are technically assigning you, but we're buying it. So we're actually coming to the table with cash and closing with one title company and a whole set of contracts, and then we're going to go to the buyer's title company because the other title company also refused to do a double close. They're like, oh, that you can't do that. And I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure you can. But it was one of those situations where it was just too much work. So then we're taking that house that once we close on it and selling it right away the very next day to another title company. And the title company on the buyer side is like, totally cool. Hey, why don't you just give us the original PSA so we know exactly the chain of events that are happening, and we'll just close it with them, and they'll pay us off, and they'll be happy, and we'll build our fee into the new sale price and all that sort of stuff. And that one is pretty close. It's going to close this week, and I'm like 98% sure that one will close, even though we're like literally walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then other times you'll have a deal that doesn't close because the seller couldn't get their corporate resolutions for their LLC that the property's owned in, and then it expires past the close date because they couldn't do that, and then they just like disappear and come back 2 months later saying they want to sell again. What?
Well, I think it's also too, it's a good lesson on why it's so important to make sure that you have a title and escrow company that gets it. And they kind of know how to play the game. And this has honestly been one of the biggest challenges with our partnership program has been, we rely on our partners to bring their title and escrow company. And then it turns out that the title and escrow company they've worked with for years is like absolute freaking trash. And they don't know that because they've never had to do any deals that weren't just like off the market.
Yep.
Right. That were outside the norm. And it just caused problems. You're right, like the corporate resolutions thing. We've had several of those where like the person is holding up forever because they want these like articles of incorporation stuff from like the end buyer of the deal. And the person's like, I don't even have that. Like I'm a one person LLC. I need to go and get like an operating agreement and shit. It's just like, but if you have a escrow company that gets it, they'll at least be like, okay, we can
they can figure things out, and they understand the rules and the rules of the game enough that they can make adjustments and kind of do audibles so that everybody gets what they need to do. And a lot of times a good title and escrow company becomes somewhat of the transaction coordinator, and you'll know a bad one when they rely on the brokers to do all the work. And so they're used to having two brokers on each side, and those brokers do all the communication, they do all the work, which good for those title companies, really crappy for the brokers. But then what that does is when you're in off-market real estate, you're like, wait, there's no brokers, and so you basically have to become the broker on both sides and make sure that all parties are doing what they're supposed to be doing at all times.
Yeah, and it's the worst thing ever. I mean, like right now we have several that they're reaching out to us and they're like, hey, we need this information from your buyer. I'm like, cool, go freaking ask him.
I specifically gave you their information, their phone number, their email, their first child's name, like so you could literally contact them when you need them, but that doesn't matter.
Or even worse is like, hey, can you get your seller's payoff statement for their mortgage?
Oh, that one frustrates me the most. God, like, no, actually, I can't.
Like, legally, they're not going to give it to me. It needs to come from the seller.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my gosh. So ridiculous.
So, anyways, but, you know, part of the business. That's where you make your money. But
yes.
All right. Cool. All right, guys. We'll call it there. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. And if you have any other opinions on what I should do with my my rental property and the little gap time I may or may not have, you should shoot me an Instagram message on Instagram at Mike_invest and let me know what you think, because I would be very interested to hear your thoughts.
If you need a place to stay, let me know. It's going to be vacant, so I will rent it to you for a good price.
Yeah, you can arbitrage it, right? You can tell me that you're gonna lease it and then go behind my back and then you know, release it to somebody else and then make a Instagram account about how you make $30,000 net, but you don't own any real estate
on my Airbnb arbitrage.
Yeah, Airbnb arbitrage my house. But that's a whole other conversation for another ball game that I just can't stand. But anyways, yeah, you should hit me up on Instagram at Mike_invest and let me know what you do, because I'm interested to hear other people's opinions on it. And if you want to follow Dan, he's at Investment Dan too. But right on. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate you all. Please share this with anyone who might be interested in real estate or just listening to some, you know, banter from two guys that are occasionally entertaining, allegedly. So that's what we've been told. But however you learn about this show, that's the easiest way to spread the word, is to share it with people that exact same way. So do that, and it's a huge favor for us. We really appreciate it. Besides that, thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk to you all next week.
See y'all.